And finally this evening we have Seth Amman, Arc and Type. Seth is founder of Arc and Type, an emerging architectural and architect-led development practice. Seth believes architecture is applied philosophy and that everyone deserves innovative designs that create value for both the individual and the community at large. Seth is a registered architect in New York State with a master's degree in architecture from the University of Buffalo. He is also a board member and advisor for the Allentown Association and Vision Niagara, two neighborhood-centered nonprofits doing amazing things in Buffalo. Fueling his passion for the beautiful and obscure, Seth has photographed and exhibited enlarged prints of the human iris, a project called Iris Topographies. Please help me welcome Seth.
Okay, so raise of hands, how many people have seen this building before? Okay, that's good. A lot have not, so I have something to talk about. So I'm going to start from the end and then work back forward when I get there. So this is me in my Lego heyday. I was graciously gifted Legos at every holiday and birthday, including Easter, and eventually we had so many Legos that they had to be categorized for easy construction. At this point in my career, I didn't didn't care about the box set, but the parts that I needed. In my rural high school, technical drafting wasn't offered to help develop my architectural career, but art was, and I took art every year. This painting or drawing is not particularly great, but it gives a glimpse into the fascination of the eye that I had and would later develop. So I became that person that would say, "You have beautiful eyes," and then pause and say, "But I mean, don't worry, I don't mean it that way. But could I take a closer look?" This often was awkward for me, but it was more about uncovering the details of something not commonly seen and then showing them at a larger scale. I've served on a couple of nonprofit boards and in general love asking the question, what would you like to see? The Rainbows on Allen Street Art project that I got funded around the idea of promoting inclusivity in Buffalo. Pride only happens once a year, but this is seen year-round, and Elton John just liked it. Before starting my practice, I read a lot on business styles, leadership, real estate development, urban design, sometimes parking, negotiating sometimes. And my wife would often jokingly ask, did anyone die in the book, or was there a love scene? And classically, I would have to say, well, no. But from this reading and the visioning process that went on, I started Arc and Type. Derived from the word archetype, it means a recurrent symbol, and an archetype exists because it has become relevant for many. That is what I wanted the work coming out of Arc and Type to be. As I recounted all the interests that have stayed with me since being very young, architecture, art, community, place, these were all static words, and so I needed to start making them actionable for the business that I wanted to create. And so I started, some with smaller projects. This is merely a garage, but it's a garage that leads you up to an upper terrace and provides a tiered garden system so the owners can park their car and store it, but at the same time take advantage of their backyard. The carriage house, so this is not often something I would normally design, mimicking an old past style, but what's interesting about this is that it finishes or completes an alley wall. And so, yes, it is in the historic preservation district, but it completes something and adds residential units above. This is a split house for an artist couple who might be here tonight. And so the house is split for living, open plan living with bedrooms above. On the right side, a garage that can be turned into a studio, and eventually, if they so wish, to age in place in an accessible lower apartment. This is actually made up of a couple smaller sculptural pieces within a suburban home. In this particular room, it was about creating storage for paperwork, books, and different media under this overlying unifying element, each individual ribbon housing a different type of media. Here, Jam, it's a new cafe in the Parkside neighborhood of Buffalo. The idea here was about this, again, a unifying element that extended across the whole ceiling, a warm wood trellis that was illuminated from above to help extend the daylight or sense of daylight. Continuing some work from the interiors of Remedy House Cafe and Jam, which you just saw, I entered into a competition in Europe, also a cafe, but the brief for this one was more or less about being tiny. So in this case, we created a golden bean, never mind. Moving on. This one is Temple Beth El, now being rebranded as Temple Green. It's unique in that it's flipping norms from being a church, which will now become a private home, interior front yard / garden, and ideally, this house is personal not because it's my own home, but because it's going to be my parents' and located on the east side of Buffalo. They said I could design it, which is great. It has a south-facing courtyard and living room, or living area on one side, and a garage, ceramic studio, and woodworking on the other. A couple years ago, I bought a vacant lot with the idea that I can design, fund, and develop an infill building that is sensitive to the neighbors, maximize units near public transportation, shape the building to respond to site, and integrate an exhibit space within it. Maybe a little hard to see. And lastly, this building represents, now full circle, the next chapter for Arc and Type, an architect-led project where architect and developer are under one roof. This apartment building has large windows for greater well-being and lighting, geothermal heating and cooling, so there's no fossil fuel use, a form that has strong corner presence but shaped to open sight lines, and artwork that can change over time at the peak. Thanks, Buffalo Architecture Foundation.